My dad said to me recently, he was like, when are you going to work on something funny? So the casting process was interesting. Very early on, our casting director, Louise Kiley, sent in some tapes for Paul. And I'd seen him on stage in Dublin. He's a recent graduate of the theatre school in Dublin. And I watched it and I was like, oh my God, it's Connell. And it was just one of those really exciting things, because that thing that makes someone be the character is so intangible. Like, you couldn't have designed Paul or said that's what you wanted, but then just on screen, he just felt totally right. And then the key was to find someone that he could play alongside. We saw a lot of women and we put people against him and some of them didn't work and we just kept going. And we finally saw a tape from Daisy quite late in the day. Marianne is a hard character, you know, she's abrasive and she's intelligent and she's vulnerable and she's sweet. And it's hard to find one person that can do all those things. You know, there's certain aspects of Marianne that loves the power that he has over her because it frees her a little bit from her own kind of sort of cerebral analysis of things. And then Daisy started to play with him, and the power balance was the other thing that was really amazing between them, that they could pass it between them, that she could be in control and then he could be in control. And also just this incredible chemistry. There's just something about how they worked with each other. Marianne's house was one of the first locations that we went to, and so some of the stuff in episode 1 was some of the first stuff to be shot. We weren't given huge amounts of time in Trinity, so everything that had to be done at Trinity was done in blocks. I mean, a lot of the locations were real places, pubs in Sligo that are exactly as they appear on screen. They're amazingly atmospheric places. One of the only sets really was Connell's bedroom, and the reason that was a set was because in the house that was Connell's house, they are really small bedrooms, and it was just very, very hard for a crew to be in there, being up close and intimate with those characters and to be able to have that space and get the angles. And, you know, like, we went to Sweden, but we also shot some of the Swedish stuff in Dublin with snow machines and all of that sort of stuff. But we wanted it to be as real as possible, so we didn't want to, you know, we didn't want to fake that much of it. Intimacy coordinator, a woman called Ita O'Brien, who also worked on sex education. It really was invaluable because you realise that, like any specialist, she's thinking about so many more things than you're ever going to think about. Daisy's going to have her periods at some point during this shoot, so somebody has to be thinking about those things, and whether certain days she's not going to want to be doing sex scenes and all that stuff. And she also does really interesting work in order to help our actors find a kind of way of expressing the kind of sexuality in the scenes that isn't necessarily how they are themselves. It's all mapped out, and if there are any concerns, then there's someone other than Lenny that the cast can talk to. And we were really upfront that full frontal nudity was going to be required. So there were people that auditioned and then actually realised they weren't going to be comfortable with that, so took themselves out of the process, because it was always going to be part of the need of the show, that the kind of nudity would be equal and shared, and that we would see them both as you would in a kind of everyday real life relationship. When you're adapting a book, your studio and your broadcasters have already had an experience of what it is to be the audience to that book. They've read it and they know what it feels like to feel that book, you know. So when you're doing an adaptation, there's a sort of shared understanding of what the common goal is, if the end result is to try and recreate that feeling. If you have an original idea, the hard thing, and I think this is the most challenging thing, and I think originals are much harder, is to really get commissioners and broadcasters to understand what it's going to feel like to watch a show that they don't know what it's going to be like. So we decided really early on to break it into these half-hour episodes, and that was motivated by an understanding that the book needed the small moments to be allowed to breathe. And we all felt that, you know, there is a plot, there's lots of story, but it's not about the kind of big story. It's not a big kind of thrusting thriller. It's about the looks, the movements, the moments, the misspoken word, the thing they don't say. And so in order for those kind of moments to stand, we thought that these half-hour episodes would be the right way to do it.